Welcome back, dear friends. This is episode number 30 of the Limitation Act. We are continuing same section 14. Please note a decision of the Kerala High Court 1991 1 KLT 91 KLT 218 by Justice Padmanabhan, a very brilliant judge. A preliminary decree for partition was passed by a civil court. An appeal should have been filed to the district court, but by mistake it was filed in the High Court. You are aware that the period of limitation for filing an appeal before the district court is 30 days. For filing it before the High Court is 90 days. On the 90th day, the appeal was filed before the High Court. And the High Court admitted the appeal, but later it was found that the appeal lies before the district court. And it was returned on 5/4/1980. It was presented before the district court only on 18/4/1980. 18/4/1980. So there is a gap of 13 days there. Before the district court, an application was filed under section 14 of the Limitation Act as well as under section 5 of the Limitation Act. That the district judge dismissed it. Matter came to the High Court. And the High Court held. I will read, though a slightly long paragraph, I will read that. It is very informative. Paragraph 6. Though sections 5 and 14 are independent and cannot be read together, they are not mutually exclusive. There is no rule of law which says that in a case where section 14 is applicable, for that reason alone section 5 is excluded. Both operate in different areas. If both provisions are available for different periods in a proceeding, nothing prevents both of them being applied separately. There cannot be any dispute that the district judge was competent to entertain and dispose of an application under section 5 on the merits. If the appeal was directly filed before him without even wrongly filed in the High Court, being wrongly filed in the High Court, the mere fact that the appeal was wrongly filed in the High Court and the further fact that the appellant got exclusion of the period while the appeal was pending in the High Court under section 14 by themselves are not reasons to deprive the benefit of section 5 if it is also available. The decisions relied on by the district judge do not have such an effect. For the application of section 5 by the district judge, it is immaterial whether the appeal was wrongly filed before the High Court on the last date of limitation or not. When exclusion under section 14 is given, the further question is only whether there is sufficient cause for extension of time under section 5 or not. That has to be decided on the merits of the application subject to the provisions of section 5. The appeal was filed before the High Court on the last day of limitation. It was found to be not maintainable there, therefore it has to be filed before the district court. When the papers are returned from the High Court today, if you rush to the district court Trivandrum, which is far away, you have to file it on the same day, then there is no problem. But it took 1 week. The party has to be informed, he has to collect the papers, and then the period during which it was pending before the High Court can be excluded, no doubt about it. But what about the other 12 or 13 days thereafter? Then an argument is advanced. What happened to you? You filed on the 90th day. You could have filed earlier. That is not a question. And Justice Padmanabhan in this decision asks, suppose he had not filed the appeal before the High Court at all, within 90 days. On the 100th day, he straightaway files an appeal before the district court and shows reason. If the district judge is satisfied with the reason, he will condone it. Then section 5 alone is sufficient. But here, section 14 was available. He is entitled to that benefit. That is not enough for the purpose of saving the suit. Section 5 is required. Saving the appeal, not suit, appeal. Suit section 5 will not apply. Saving the appeal. And therefore section 5 was invoked. Both are available. So this point you will not find in anywhere, in any other decision. So that each decision I cite with a purpose. Some are repetitions, but of course, some delicate points are involved. See the arguments advanced by the lawyers at different levels. Then another decision by Justice Padmanabhan. I had cited while dealing with section 13. AER 1991 Kerala 76. Sridevi versus Appu. It is reported in 1990 volume 2 KLT 392 also. Sridevi versus Appu. See, while dealing with section 13, I said that the time occupied by the pauper application, the indigent application, on payment of court fee, that will be treated as having been properly filed on the date, going by section 322, section 13 of the Limitation Act, and also rule 15A of order 33. Once you pay the court fee, suit is all right. Here in this case, what is involved is the application for filing the suit as an indigent person was dismissed on the merits. Then on payment of court fee, he can resurrect it within the time allowed by the court. But what he did was, he filed a separate suit. And by that time, the suit was barred by limitation. If he gets exclusion of the time which he was spending before the court where he was prosecuting the application under order 33 rule 1, the suit is within time. Question is whether that exclusion is possible. And it was held in this decision, it is not possible. It is not possible. I am not reading that paragraph, it is a very long paragraph. 149, section 149 of the CPC was also sought to be introduced. The suit or appeal is a separate document which remains for the disposal after rejection of the application. And the court has power under section 149 to give further time for payment of court fee. True. And treat the court fee as paid in the first instance. But such a power is not available when a fresh suit is filed out of time. After dismissal of the application, the suit or appeal has to be revived on payment of the court fee, if necessary by getting extension of time. There extension of time is possible, but only for the purpose of paying the court fee and for reviving the suit. If that is not done and a fresh suit is filed, it means the original suit or appeal is abandoned and it is having an automatic death. When a fresh suit is filed on payment of court fee after expiry of the period of limitation, the time spent in prosecution of an earlier application for leave to sue or appeal as an indigent person which was dismissed cannot be excluded. The exclusion is available only in the same proceeding which gets converted into a suit or appeal on payment of the court fee. Court cannot enlarge the period of limitation prescribed under the Limitation Act and permit a time-barred suit to be admitted. What is permitted is only exclusion of time. By treating the same suit or appeal as having the force and effect as the one filed at the first instance, as if the court fee was paid then. Section 14 is permissible, 13 is permissible only for converting the same proceeding into a regular suit or appeal on payment of the court fee, and it is not available when a fresh suit independent of the original proceeding is filed. The fresh suit which is filed as an independent proceeding later on payment of the court fee cannot be treated under section 13 as having the force and effect as if court fee was paid on an earlier date. Section 13 and 14 were considered together because the applicability of section 14 was also claimed. Next is 1987 2 KLT 578, Kerala Law Times 578, which is the same as 1987 KHC 528. Sarojini versus Patumal. Section 14 scope. Paragraph 4. The cardinal policy of the provision of section 14 is to furnish protection against the bar of limitation. To a person who honestly and diligently solicits a trial on merits in a forum having no jurisdiction and which forum cannot afford him such a trial. See the interpretation. He solicits a trial on the merits in a forum, but it was not having jurisdiction and therefore it cannot provide that facility to the litigant, and which forum cannot afford him such a trial. Such a relief cannot be denied to a person who, due to the technical plea, is forced to choose the right forum, provided he has acted in good faith and with due diligence. Though section 14 in terms applies to suits and applications only and not to appeals, the circumstances envisaged in the section can very well constitute a sufficient cause within the purview of section 5 of the Act for the purpose of appeals also. That is Munshi Ram versus Punnaram, AER 1974, Punjab and Haryana 229 was relied on. And it was held, where it was held, Punjab and Haryana. Though section 14 in terms applies to suits and applications only and not to appeals, the circumstances contemplated in the section can justifiably be taken to constitute a sufficient cause within the meaning assigned to that phrase in section 5 for the purpose of appeals also. This is what is held. I just previous one of the episodes I cited the decision by Justice Seshadri Naidu. On principle it is correct, but see, my difference of opinion was that his lordship could have applied section 5 and saved. Next is AER 1987 Kerala 37. AER 1987 Kerala 37. 86 Kerala High Court cases 249. Parameswaran versus Ramachandran. Two gods, Parameswaran versus Ramachandran. There it is a division bench. It is a single bench by Justice Varghese Kalliyath. There, I will read paragraphs 14, 17 and 21. Small paragraphs. The wholesome purpose and policy discernible in section 14 of the Limitation Act are the benevolent concern and care of the legislature to protect an innocent person and his cause from not being stumbled upon the rock of limitation, where he was honestly doing his best to see his case tried on the merits. but failed because the court where the suit was pending was unable to give him such a trial. Para 17, 14 of the Limitation Act postulates the following conditions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it is there. Same thing which are in other decisions. The next question is, if these conditions exist, what is the exact nature and extent of the shield of protection the plaintiff is entitled to? Is the plaintiff entitled to an extension of the period of limitation prescribed by the Act to the extent of the period during which the suit was prosecuted with due diligence and good faith in a court which from defective jurisdiction is unable to entertain it? I have no doubt that the time allowed to the plaintiff by the wrong court after declaring that he has no jurisdiction to try the suit is not a period during which the suit can be said to be pending in the wrong court. The grant of a grace period to represent the suit in the proper court to save the court fee paid in the plaint, a prevalent practice in the lower courts, has really no statutory backing. What is the legal effect? A suit is filed. It is permitted to be withdrawn. Otherwise, it will be dismissed on some ground, technical ground. It was sought to be withdrawn and to be filed either because this court has some defect of jurisdiction or because of some other cause. Withdrawn. And at the time of withdrawal, the court says, all right, you present before the proper court within 15 days. By that time, the suit is barred. Exclusion is possible if the conditions under 14(3) are satisfied. That is one thing. But granting time to represent it, this is filed within time before the court. It took several months here, in the wrong court. And it is withdrawn and it is represented after 10 days. And the court says that you represent before the proper court within 15 days. Whether there is any legal sanctity for it. It is held by various courts that it has no. The court, while returning the plaint, says that you represented before the proper court within such and such time, has no legal backing. It is an order without jurisdiction. So it is for you to decide after withdrawing the suit. Suppose you do not file it. Would the court be giving a futile discretionary order? Can the court insist on refiling it? The plaintiff is the dominus litis. He is the master of the suit. He can file it. He need not file it. He can throw it off. He can file another suit with another set of court fee. Though he has spent 1 lakh as court fee in a suit which is withdrawn, he need not refile it before the proper court. He can file another suit paying another set of court fee in the new court. It is for him to decide. Therefore, it is a futile exercise for the court to say, you file it before the proper court within 10 days. That is only a solace to the party. All the parties take it correctly, but it is not, there is no legal backing for that. This is what is held here. Next is 1984 Supplemental SEC 505. Same as AER 1985 Supreme Court 39. Safar Khan and others versus Board of Revenue UP and others. What is the meaning of the expression from defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature? Is the like nature unable to entertain it? What is the meaning of the expression from defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature? was the topic which was considered in Zafar Khan. This decision of the Supreme Court has been referred to in various subsequent decisions of the Supreme Court. In paragraph 14, I may be permitted to read it. It is very important. A portion, not whole of paragraph 14. Whole of paragraph 14 is very long. It is true that where the expression as a whole reads from the defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature is unable to entertain it, the expression cause of a like nature will have to be read ejustem generis with the expression defect of jurisdiction. So construed, the expression other cause of a like nature must be so interpreted so as to convey something analogous to the preceding words from defect of jurisdiction. The defect of jurisdiction goes to the root of the matter, as the court is incompetent to entertain the proceeding. The proceeding may as well fail for some other defect. Not at all such defects can be said to be analogous to the defect of jurisdiction. Therefore, the expression other cause of a like nature, on which some light is shed by explanation C to section 14, which provides misjoinder of parties or causes of action, shall be deemed to be a cause of like nature with the defect of jurisdiction, must make its color and content from the just preceding expression defect of jurisdiction. Prima facie it appears that there must be some preliminary objection. This is the point. Prima facie it appears that there must be some preliminary objection which, if succeeds, the court would be incompetent to entertain the proceeding on the merits. Such defect could be said to be of the like nature as defect of jurisdiction. Conversely, the party seeking the benefit of the provision of section 14 failed to get the relief in the earlier proceeding, not with regard to anything connected with the jurisdiction of the court or some other defect of a like nature, it would not be entitled to the benefit of section 14. Suppose it is dismissed on merits, you will not get the benefit. Where therefore the party failed in the earlier proceeding on merits and not on defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature, it would not be entitled to the benefit of section 14 of the Limitation Act. And there a Supreme Court judgment was also referred to, India Electrical Works Limited. India Electrical Works Limited versus James Mantosh. AER 1971, Supreme Court 2313. If a suit is disposed of on merits and it is found that the plaintiff is not entitled to the relief, and he files another suit in a higher court, paying court fee, showing a higher valuation, and then says, I was prosecuting another suit in the Municipal Court, please exclude that period. It is not possible. The first suit must fail because of some defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature. Otherwise, exclusion is not possible. In Zafar Khan's case, other cause of a like nature was interpreted, and which was followed in a very large number of cases in the Supreme Court itself. AER 1985 Supreme Court 1669, Vijay Kumar Rampal and others. Vijay Kumar Rampal and others versus Diwan Devi and others. Expression good faith qualifies proceeding in court having no jurisdiction. Plaintiff was ordered to be returned by the district judge for presentation in the court of sub-judge, and the next day the plaintiff took the plaint on the same and on that same day presented it to the proper court, held that he could not be denied the benefit of section 14 merely on the ground that there was improper valuation of the suit and negligence in computing court fee. This is what the Supreme Court said. And AER 1984 Kerala 91, same as 1983 KHC 206, Mookan Devasi Ausep and others and sons, Mookan Devasi Ausep and sons versus Rajapan Pillai. The court held what are the conditions to be satisfied for the exclusion of time of pendency of a suit in a court which has no jurisdiction. And 14 does not apply in a case where the plaintiff did not act with due care and caution and filed the suit in a wrong court without applying mind, without taking due care and caution. Now, there are very many other decisions. I will cite it in the next 2 episodes or 1 episode at least. Thank you very much.